My father's ex post went up the night I moved out. My name is Megan Whitaker. I was 32 years old, and according to the man who raised me, I was finally gone for good. His post said, "The 32-year-old Leech is finally gone. No more cooking her meals or washing her underwear." By midnight, it had 1,347 likes. My aunt commented, "Remember when she picked up trash around our house? She always smelled." My sister tagged her friends and wrote, "Stay away from this loser." Then my father uploaded before and after photos of my old room, calling it her pigsty room versus my new man cave. Even my ex commented, "Dodged a bullet." 99 comments mocked me by my full name. I screenshotted every single one, then I liked every comment. Before I explain what they never knew, tell me where you're watching from tonight, your city, state, or country. I want to know how far this family story travels before the receipts start speaking. I waited 14 days, then I made my move. To understand why I waited, you need to know whose house they were laughing in. The house sat in a quiet Westerville area suburb outside Columbus, Ohio. The kind of neighborhood where people waved from driveways, judged each other's lawns, and remembered every moving truck that ever came down the street. My grandmother, Evelyn Whitaker, bought that house decades before I was born, back when the street still had young maple trees and half the families on the block were raising small children. She was practical, careful, and almost stubborn about money. She clipped coupons even when she did not need to. She kept warranties in labeled envelopes. She paid off her mortgage early and told me more than once that a home was only a blessing if nobody could use it to control you. My father, Gary Whitaker, never heard that lesson the way I did. To him, the house was always supposed to become his because he was her son. He spoke about it like it was already settled, like birth order and volume could replace legal documents. When I was growing up, he would stand in the kitchen, slap his palm on the counter, and say things like, "One day, this place will finally be managed right." By managed right, he meant managed by him, with my mother Karen smiling beside him because comfort was easier than honesty. But Grandma Evelyn did not trust him. She loved him, yes, but she did not trust him. There is a difference people pretend not to understand until money is involved. Gary borrowed from her over and over. First, it was a car repair. Then, it was a credit card bill. Then, a business idea that never became a business. Then, a temporary emergency that somehow lasted until the next temporary emergency. Every time he promised to pay her back, Grandma Evelyn wrote it down in a blue ledger she kept in her desk. He hated that ledger. He said family did not keep score. She told him people who never intended to pay always said that. When she got sick, he became extra attentive in public and extra restless in private. He started talking about renovations. He talked about turning the back porch into a bar room. He talked about taking down walls. He talked about our house while Grandma Evelyn was still alive and sitting 3 ft away from him. She never corrected him in front of everyone. She just looked at me sometimes with tired eyes like she was asking me to remember. I did. When she passed, I was 24 years old. The will was clear. The house was left to me, not to Gary. Not to Karen, not to the family as a group, me, Megan Whitaker. I remember sitting in the attorney's office with my hands folded so tightly my knuckles hurt while my father stared at the paperwork as if anger ink. He laughed once, sharp and ugly, then said, "Paperwork does not change family." That became his favorite line. He said it to relatives. He said it to neighbors. He said it whenever anyone hinted that maybe Grandma Evelyn had known exactly what she was doing. Karen supported him because Karen liked living in that house. She liked the big kitchen. She liked the finished basement. She liked the low expenses because there was no mortgage. She liked telling people they lived in a beautiful family home without explaining that the legal owner slept in the smallest upstairs bedroom while her parents treated her like an unpaid tenant. At 24, I became the sole legal owner. At 24, I also became the family disappointment for not handing it over. Gary decided the will was a technicality. He told everyone I was holding the house for the family as if I were a storage unit with a pulse. Then, because hypocrisy needs a schedule, he demanded that I pay a monthly household contribution. $600 a month. He said it was only fair because I was an adult living under his roof. His roof. Those were his words. I paid it. Month after month. Year after year. For 8 years. I paid $600 a month to live in a house I owned because I was young, exhausted, and still trained to believe peace was cheaper than confrontation. It was not. I bought my own GR. Ossuaries, I bought my own detergent. I paid my own phone plan, my own car insurance, my own work supplies, and every repair related to my room. I replaced the upstairs bathroom fan when it died. I paid for a plumber when the basement utility sink backed up because Gary said it was not his problem if I used water. Still, at every holiday, he joked that I ate them out of house and home. Karen sighed about how expensive it was to support me. My sister Paige rolled her eyes whenever I walked in with grocery bags, as if the bags had magically appeared from their bank account. Aunt Marlene loved asking when I planned to grow up. They spoke about me like I was a burden they had been carrying, and the cruelest part was that I let them. Not because they were right, because I was building something they were too busy laughing to see. The joke about trash started when I was 22. Back then, I took any weekend work I could get. I cleaned alleys behind small restaurants. I helped clear garages after estate sales. I hauled broken shelves out of rental units. I sorted curbside junk piles when landlords needed a place emptied before a city deadline. It was dirty work. Sometimes I came home smelling like damp cardboard, old paint, fryer grease, or whatever had been rotting inside a forgotten trash bin behind a duplex. I showered until my skin stung. I washed my clothes separately. I kept my boots in a sealed tub in the trunk of my car. I was not proud of the smell, but I was proud of the money. Gary was not. He said no respectable woman worked like that. He said I was embarrassing him. That always amazed me because I never saw him embarrassed when he borrowed money from his mother and did not pay it back. Aunt Marlene turned my work into a family routine. At cookouts, she would wrinkle her nose dramatically when I walked in and ask whether the trash route had followed me home. Paige copied her. Karen gave that soft little laugh she used when she wanted to be included but not blamed. Gary called me Sanitation Barbie one Thanksgiving in front of 12 people, then acted offended when I went quiet. They thought the job was proof that I had failed. What they did not know was that those weekends taught me more than any lecture could have. I learned how apartment managers think when they are racing against vacancy loss. I learned which city inspectors cared about blocked exits, improper dumping, and pest risks. I learned how small businesses panic when they fail waste audits. I learned that medical offices, insurance agencies, and property managers all had one problem in common. They needed sensitive materials, junk overflow, and regulated waste streams handled correctly, quickly, and with documentation. So I stopped thinking like a girl doing odd jobs. I started thinking like an owner. I got licensed. I took certification courses at night. I learned municipal waste rules, document destruction standards, vendor contracts, chain of custody forms, and commercial disposal logistics. I built a company called ClearPath Disposal Solutions, a commercial waste audit and secure disposal logistics business. It did not sound glamorous because it was not supposed to. Glamour does not pay invoices. Systems do. By 28, I had contracts with apartment managers, small landlords, estate attorneys, dental offices, local clinics, and independent businesses that needed clean outs, audit reports, secure shredding coordination, and proof that hazardous or sensitive materials had been handled through approved vendors. I was not dragging trash bags for cash anymore. I was managing crews, scheduling inspections, reviewing before and after documentation, invoicing clients, negotiating disposal rates, and making sure every job had photos, signatures, and compliance notes. My family never asked what I actually did. They preferred the old story because it made them feel taller. Gary still told people I picked through garbage. Paige still joked that I smelled like a dumpster even when I was wearing a blazer, and coming home from a client meeting. Aunt Snorts Marlene once asked whether I got a discount on trash cans. I smiled because by then one of my monthly contracts paid more than Gary made in 2 weeks. My ex, Travis Coleman, hated my work in a different way. He liked me when he thought I was quiet and grateful. He liked that I lived in a nice house in a nice suburb until he realized I was not the spoiled daughter of comfortable parents. He thought my job sounded low class. He thought living with my family at 30 made him look bad. He said he needed a woman with better optics, which was one of those phrases people use when they want to sound strategic instead of shallow. When he broke up with me, he told me I needed to figure out my life. I did. I just did not call him to report my progress. For years, I saved aggressively. I did not buy designer bags. I did not take vacations with people who mocked me. I drove the same used Honda until the driver's seat fabric split. Every $600 household contribution I paid to Gary made me angry, but every real dollar I kept went toward freedom. Then a 2-bedroom townhouse came up for sale in a secure building near my office space. It had good light, clean floors, underground parking, and a front desk that did not allow relatives to wander in without permission. I bought it in cash, not financed. Not rented, bought. I signed the final papers on a Wednesday and did not tell anyone. For 3 weeks, I packed slowly while everyone was at work. I took my documents first, then my business files, then my winter clothes, my grandmother's jewelry box, my client binders, my backup drives, and the small framed photo of Grandma Evelyn standing in front of the house the year she bought it. I left behind enough in my room that nobody noticed at first. On moving day, I hired a professional crew and waited until Gary, Karen, and Paige were all home. The movers came through the front door with boxes labeled by room. Gary stood in the hallway with a beer in his hand and laughed. "Where do you think you're going?" he asked. "My townhouse," I said. Paige snorted. Karen looked confused. Gary leaned against the wall and said, "How could you afford rent anywhere?" I looked at him and said, "I didn't rent it, I bought it." The room went quiet, not guilty quiet, calculating quiet. The kind of quiet people make when they realize they have been laughing at a locked door while the person with the key has already left. Still, they did not know the part that mattered most. They did not know I was not just leaving the house. I was about to act on it. For 2 weeks, I let them enjoy the version of me they had invented. I slept in my townhouse for the first time with my phone face down on the kitchen counter and woke up to silence so clean it almost scared me. No Gary stomping down the hall. No Karen sighing loudly outside my door. No Paige yelling into her phone from the bathroom while pretending she was the only person in the house with a life. I worked, ate alone, unpacked slowly, and watched the X thread spread. Nobody checked whether I was safe. Nobody asked whether I had moved everything I needed. Nobody asked if I was eating, sleeping, or okay. Gary posted again the next morning with a picture of my empty closet and wrote, "Progress." Aunt Marlene replied with 3 laughing emojis. Paige reposted the bedroom photo and added, "The energy in this house already feels cleaner." Travis's dodged a bullet comment sat there collecting likes from people who had never met me, but apparently felt qualified to celebrate my humiliation. I saved everything. Screenshots from X, reposts, text messages, missed calls that came only after people started asking questions. A message from Paige saying, "You're really not going to defend yourself. That's pathetic." A message from Karen saying, "Your father is hurt that you left so dramatically." I saved those, too. I did not answer. My attorney, Nathan Porter, had already told me that silence is not weakness when documentation is doing the talking. On day 15, Gary signed for certified mail. I know because Nathan's office sent me delivery confirmation at 10:42 in the morning. By noon, my phone lit up. 1 call from Gary, then 3, then 12, then 21. Karen started texting first with confusion, then panic, then little broken sentences about how she did not understand why I was doing this. Paige texted from her own number, then from a number I did not recognize after I blocked the first one. I let them wait until evening. When I finally answered Gary's call, he did not say hello. He said, "What the hell is this letter?" His voice still had that old command in it, that deep certainty that if he sounded angry enough, the world would step back into place. I put him on speaker and sat at my new dining table with a cup of coffee I had made just for something to hold. "Read it," I said. "Do not play games with me, Megan. Read it out loud." He breathed hard into the phone. I heard paper moving. In the background, Karen was crying. Paige said something I could not make out. Then Gary read pieces of the notice like the words were poisoning him. The letter came from Nathan Porter, attorney at law. It stated that I, Megan Whitaker, was the sole legal owner of the property. It stated that Gary and Karen Whitaker were occupying the residence at my discretion. It stated that any future residence at the property would require written terms approved by the owner. It stated that continued occupancy without written agreement could result in formal legal action. Gary stopped reading before the final paragraph. "You cannot treat your parents like strangers," he snapped. "Strangers did not post my full name on X and invite the town to laugh," I said. Karen sobbed louder, and for 1 second the old part of me twitched. The trained part, the daughter part, the part that had spent years translating cruelty into stress and disrespect into misunderstanding. Then I looked at the folder on my table, at the screenshots printed in neat chronological order, and that part of me went quiet. Gary said, "This is still a family home." "No," I said. "It is my home. You have been living there because I allowed it." He called me ungrateful. I almost laughed. Ungrateful for paying $600 a month to live in my own house. Ungrateful for buying my own food while being called a freeloader. Ungrateful for staying quiet while they used my grandmother's roof as a stage for my humiliation. He demanded a meeting. I told him all communication could go through Nathan if he could not be civil. That was the first time I heard fear under his anger. It was small, but it was there. "What do you want?" he asked. I looked at the next envelope sitting on my table, already stamped and ready for Monday. "You'll find out," I said. I ended the call before he could speak again. The first panic wave had begun, but I had not shown them the lease yet. The second envelope arrived the following Monday. Gary did not call immediately this time. He waited 23 minutes, which told me he had opened it, read enough to understand it, and then walked around the house trying to invent a version where he still had leverage. The envelope contained a formal month-to-month lease. It was clean, professional, and painfully ordinary, which made it more powerful than any angry letter could have been. Rent was $3,200 a month, based on comparable 4-bedroom homes in the same school district. The lease required Gary and Karen to place utilities in their own names, handle routine maintenance caused by normal use, comply with HOA rules, pay any HOA violations they caused, and follow insurance-related safety conditions, including no unauthorized business storage in the garage, no structural modifications, and no occupancy by anyone not listed without written approval. I did not ask for revenge money. I did not demand back rent, even though I had 8 years of $600 payments documented. I did not add an emotional suffering fee, a public humiliation fee, or a "you called me a leech on the internet" fee. Not yet. Nathan Clear's throat advised restraint. "Restraint," he said, "reads well on paper." So the lease gave them a deadline. Sign and pay the required first month plus deposit or vacate. Gary called at 4:16 p.m. "We are not paying rent to our own daughter," he said. "You're not paying your daughter," I said. "You're paying the owner." He made a sound like I had slapped him. Karen grabbed the phone next. Her voice shook. "Megan, sweetheart, we can do $500 for now." "Your father is stressed. We need time." I stared at the wall above my desk where I had hung Grandma Evelyn's photo. $500 is less than what I paid you every month to live in my own house," I said. Karen went quiet, not because she understood, because she had no soft answer ready. "That was different," she whispered. "How?" I asked. She started crying again. I did not fill the silence for her. Paige called next, angry enough to forget she was supposed to sound wounded. "You're humiliating this family," she said. "Have you deleted your ex comment?" I asked. "That would look weird now," she said. "Then that answers the apology question." She told me I was acting like a monster. I asked whether she had moved her resale inventory out of the garage. She hung up. The utility transfer notice landed the same day. Nathan had been very careful about that part. He told me more than once not to do anything that looked like a lockout, a threat, or a self-help eviction. I was not to change locks. I was not to shut off services. I was not to show up and argue on the porch. The notice gave Gary and Karen time to open accounts in their own names, arrange deposits if required, and confirm transfer dates. It was boring and legal and exactly what needed to happen. They ignored it because they still believed I was bluffing. Gary had spent 8 years saying paperwork did not change family, and now he was discovering that paperwork was the only reason he had not already been told to leave. He tried calling relatives. Aunt Marlene posted, "Some people forget who raised them." Paige shared it with a broken heart emoji like she had been personally evicted from a castle. Karen left messages about memories, holidays, and how Grandma Evelyn would be ashamed. That one almost got a response from me. Almost. Because Grandma Evelyn had left the house to me for the exact reason Karen was pretending not to see. She knew Gary would turn love into ownership. She knew he would confuse access with entitlement. She knew Karen would choose comfort and call it peace. I forwarded every message to Nathan. He replied with short, steady instructions. Do not engage, save everything. Meet every deadline. Let them show who they are. So I did. While Gary told people I was unstable, I went to work. While Paige called me bitter, I reviewed a waste stream audit for a dental group expanding to 3 locations. Why? Le Karen cried into my voicemail. I approved payroll for 2 crews and signed a new contract with an estate attorney who needed secure disposal and clean-out coordination for inherited commercial property. The life they mocked kept moving. The life they depended on was ending. The deadline moved closer. One ordinary day at a time. They wasted every one of them. The first person outside my family to call me was Nora Bennett. Nora was the HOA secretary, Grandma Evelyn's old neighbor, and one of those women who noticed everything without making a show of noticing anything. She had known me since I was a kid riding a purple bike with white streamers down the sidewalk. I had not spoken to her in months, so when her name appeared on my phone, I expected awkward sympathy. Instead, she said, "Megan, I think you need to know what your father is telling people." I sat down before she finished the sentence. Gary had been telling neighbors I was unstable. He said I had gotten greedy and was trying to steal the house from my own parents. He said I was evicting them because I was bitter about being single. He said my business was failing and I wanted to sell the house to cover debts. Every accusation was a confession wearing a cheap mask. Nora sent screenshots from the neighborhood group chat. Gary had written long messages about betrayal. Karen had replied with prayer hands. Paige had called me jealous. Aunt Marlene, who did not even live in the neighborhood, somehow appeared in the thread to say she had always worried about my character. Then Nora sent something more useful. Photos. The garage had been turned into Gary's half-finished man cave and Paige's resale storage unit. There were clothing racks, boxes of shoes, plastic bins, shipping supplies, a mini fridge, a card table, and a neon beer sign mounted near the electrical panel. Gary had posted a proud photo of himself standing in the middle of it with the caption, "Finally using the space properly." Properly. In a property he did not own. Under an insurance policy that did not cover unauthorized business inventory, electrical changes, or commercial storage. Paige had been using the garage for her online resale business without my permission. That created lease problems, HOA problems, and insurance problems. I forwarded the photos to Nathan. He replied, "Do not contact them." This helps. The second outside call came from Eric Donley, one of Gary's coworkers. I recognized the name because Gary had mentioned him before, usually with resentment. Eric sounded embarrassed. He said Gary had borrowed money from him and claimed I would pay it back once I calmed down. I closed my eyes and let the sentence settle. Gary was now taking loans against my imagined guilt. I never agreed to pay any debt for my father, I said. He told us you owned the house only on paper, Eric said. He said the family money was tied up and you were being difficult. There is no family money, I said. There is my property and there are his choices. Eric got quiet then, admitted Gary had borrowed from more than one person at work. He said he would have to report it because some of the loans had been requested during work hours with Gary, using his supervisor to roll to pressure people without saying it directly. I did not tell Eric what to do. I simply said, I cannot help you recover money I did not borrow. That same night Travis texted me for the first time in months. Hey, I've been thinking about you. I stared at the message and felt nothing. Not sadness, not temptation, not even anger, just curiosity like seeing a raccoon in daylight. I replied, what changed? 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. I just hate seeing people treat you badly, he wrote. That was when I knew he had seen the X thread turning against my family. Maybe someone had mentioned the house. Maybe he had realized the woman with bad optics had assets. Maybe he had always been exactly as shallow as he sounded, and I was finally too awake to romanticize it. I blocked him without replying. Meanwhile, Gary and Karen tried to start a public victim story. Gary posted about adult children who forget sacrifice. Karen shared a quote about honoring parents. Paige wrote, "Money changes people," which was hilarious coming from a woman storing unpaid inventory in my garage. Aunt Marlene posted vague complaints about betrayal, greed, and young women who think dirty money makes them better than family. I did not argue publicly. I did not defend myself in the comments. I did not post a dramatic thread. Not yet. Nathan had taught me the difference between satisfaction and strategy. Satisfaction would have been calling them liars online. Strategy was letting them keep typing while I collected proof. Every screenshot went into the folder. Every voicemail was saved. Every third-party message was documented with dates. By the time the lease deadline arrived, my family had not prepared to move, had not signed, had not transferred. Utilities had not cleared the garage and had not apologized. They had done only one thing consistently. They had proven my case for me. By the time the deadline passed, they had spent every day arguing and none of it preparing. Gary and Karen did not sign the lease. They did not vacate. They did not transfer the utilities properly. Gary discovered that old unpaid balances and poor credit do not disappear just because a man raises his voice. The utility companies required deposits he could not cover. Karen called me 13 times in one afternoon, leaving messages that swung from gentle to furious to desperate. Megan, we don't have that kind of money. Megan, your father is trying. Megan, you are making us look homeless. Megan, please just call me back. Paige texted, P, please don't do this. We know we were wrong. I looked at that message for a long time because it was the first time any of them had placed the word wrong near themselves, but it was not an apology. It was a bargaining chip. There was no, I deleted the post. No, I lied. No, I humiliated you. No, I helped people mock you while living under your roof. Just please don't do this because consequences had finally learned their address. Nathan filed the required eviction paperwork. Everything moved slower than emotion wanted and faster than my family expected. Gary tried to sign the lease after the offer expired. Nathan informed him the offer was no longer available and all communication would go through his office. Gary called me anyway. I did not answer. Karen left a voicemail asking for one more family dinner so we could remember who we were before all this. I sent one written response through Nathan. Family dinner ended when they turned my life into an X thread. Paige showed up at my townhouse 2 nights later. She did not make it past the lobby. Building management called me because a woman claiming to be my sister was crying, raising her voice, and demanding to be let upstairs. I told them she was not approved. They warned her to leave. She shouted that I was destroying our parents, that I thought I was better than everyone, that she hoped I enjoyed being alone. The front desk documented the incident. I sent it to Nathan. Page later posted, "Some people choose luxury apartments over blood." It was a townhouse, not a luxury apartment, but accuracy had never been her gift. Nora Bennett did something I did not ask for but deeply appreciated. In the neighborhood group chat, she calmly confirmed that Grandma Evelyn had legally left the house to me years earlier. She did not insult Gary. She did not defend every detail of my life. She simply stated what she knew and said the public attacks against me were inappropriate. The tone of the neighborhood shifted after that. People who had laughed quietly became quiet in a different way. Some deleted comments. Some stopped reacting. Gary posted less. Then Eric Donnell's report at work triggered an investigation. I never learned every detail, and I did not need to. What I knew was enough. Gary had borrowed money from multiple coworkers. Some felt pressured because he had been their supervisor. Some had texts where he implied repayment would come from family property once I stopped being difficult. His employer removed him from his supervisor role first. Then, after more interviews, he was either forced out or resigned before termination. Gary told relatives he left because the company had become political. I knew better. Karen took shifts at a grocery store pharmacy counter because their debt was real now. Not theoretical, not hidden behind Grandma Evelyn's paid-off mortgage. Real. Paige's resale business took a hit when screenshots of her comments circulated among local buyers. A few clients stopped purchasing from her. One posted that she did not trust anyone who mocked a family member online while storing inventory in that family member's property without permission. Aunt Marlene posted vague about betrayal for another week, then moved on to complaining about restaurant prices and young people wearing pajamas in public. I ignored her. The court process finished. On the final move-out day, a sheriff's deputy oversaw everything. I stood across the driveway with Nathan beside me. Not because I needed dramatic satisfaction, but because I needed to see the house become quiet. Gary carried boxes out with his jaw clenched, refusing to look at me. Karen's snorts cried in the driveway, clutching a laundry basket full of framed family photos she had once used as evidence that we were close. Paige did not come. Her inventory had been removed the night before after Nathan sent a separate notice. The man cave never became a man cave. It became a pile of drywall dust, beer signs, extension cords, and cheap shelving loaded into a rented truck. When Gary walked past me for the last time, he muttered, "I hope you're proud." I looked at the house Grandma Evelyn had protected, the house he had claimed, the house I had paid to live in while being called a leech. "I am," I said. Karen waited as if I might hug her. I did not. I did not touch her shoulder. I did not promise we would talk later. I did not offer money. I did not soften the ending so she could feel less responsible for the middle. When the truck pulled away, the street sounded different, not happy, just honest. The house needed repairs. The carpet in my old room had to be replaced. The garage needed electrical work after Gary's amateur additions. The walls needed patching. The kitchen cabinets had sticky handles, and one broken hinge Karen had ignored for years because maintenance was apparently my responsibility only when blame was involved. I paid for repairs, listed the property, and sold it. I kept every dollar. I did not split proceeds. I did not create a family fund. I did not rescue Gary from debt, reimburse Karen for her pharmacy counter uniforms, replace Paige's lost resale clients, or answer Travis when he tried emailing me from a new address. I changed my number. I blocked Paige everywhere. I blocked Travis everywhere. I told Nathan Porter that any family contact could go through his office, and then I built a life where my phone did not shake every time a relative wanted something. Months later, I opened the screenshot folder one last time. Gary's original ex-post was still there, frozen in its own confidence. The 32-year-old Leech is finally gone. I thought about how proud he had been when he typed it. How certain he was that the world would laugh with him and nothing would change. He was half right. The world did laugh for a while, then the paperwork arrived. Then the lease arrived. Then the truth arrived with certified mail, court dates, neighbor screenshots, workplace reports, and a sheriff's deputy standing in the driveway of the house he had never owned. The 32-year-old Leech was finally gone. And this time, she took back the roof they never admitted was hers. Thank you for listening until the final moments. Everything in this video is fictional and made only for entertainment and educational purposes. We hope it reminds you that the people who dismiss your boundaries often reveal exactly why those boundaries were needed in the first place. A healthy relationship would not punish you for protecting your time, your emotions, or your dignity.